These days, it's like all the guys have collectively given up. The ones who have a car and a house just spend their time fishing, camping, fiddling with prayer beads, or drinking and chatting with their buddies. The ones without a car or house just completely lie flat, playing games, raising cats, and joking about themselves like, I won't get married anyway, so I might as well just enjoy being a happy homebody. Even their parents nagging them to get married doesn't work anymore. Meanwhile, the girls are getting anxious and stomping their feet, but the guys are acting like they've already retired early and are just enjoying single life. For years in China, women have been raised with a particular belief drilled into their minds. Don't settle, wait for the best, hold your standards high, and never compromise because a better option will always come along. This thinking, heavily influenced by rapid modernization, a booming economy, and the cultural obsession with marrying up, has shaped generations of women, especially those born in the 80s and 90s. They grew up hearing stories of successful marriages where the man owned an apartment in the city, had a stable government job, a car, and ideally came from a well-off family. The narrative was clear: why marry early when you can climb higher, earn more, and eventually secure a man who checks every box on your list? If you've been single for more than 7 years like me, I sincerely suggest you just find someone to date first. Don't overthink it. Don't worry about whether it will last till the end. Just start dating. After being single for 7 years, you've become rusty at relationships. You don't know how to interact with the opposite sex anymore. You don't know how to chat. You might not even remember what it feels like to hold hands. So hurry up and find someone to date. That's the best way. The problem is that time is ruthless, and reality doesn't wait for anyone. Many of these women entered their 20s with the confidence of queens. They were young, attractive, educated, and ambitious. Men courted them, sometimes lined up for their attention. A woman in her 20s could afford to be picky because she had youth and beauty on her side. But instead of seeing relationships as mutual growth, a lot of them were told they deserved the best. So they turned down average men, the office worker with a modest salary, the honest guy from a small town, the classmate who liked them but wasn't rich enough. To them, those men simply weren't good enough. Why marry a man making 5,000 RMB a month when there's a guy out there making 30,000? Why choose the man who rents when you could wait for one who owns a condo? Why settle for an ordinary face when a taller, more handsome one might appear? Do you know, this year, nearly 20,000 people born after 2000 have registered for marriage. But among them, only a little over 1,000 are men, while women have exceeded 10,000. In other words, most of the post-2000 women are actually marrying men born in the 1990s, or even the 1980s. This is not good news for women born in the 1980s and 1990s who are still single, because the good quality men in their age group already settled down long ago. And now they're also having to compete with younger post-2000 women for resources. Just thinking about it is really stressful. What do you think? The women who were once in their 20s are now in their 30s. And here's the thing: by the time a woman enters her 30s in China, the game changes drastically. Men, especially those who have built wealth or stability, usually don't look for women their own age. They look younger. A 35-year-old man with a decent income, if given the choice, will usually pursue a woman in her mid-20s, not someone his own age. Why? Because in his mind, a younger woman represents fertility, youth, and more value in the traditional sense. This is not about fairness. It's about cold cultural reality. Is it normal for a guy around 30 to not be able to buy a house in Wuhan? Yesterday, a guy sent me a private message asking this question. I want to analyze it objectively for everyone. When a man reaches marriageable age, if he relies only on himself and his parents to buy a house, it's actually very difficult. This guy was born in 1993, he's 32 this year. He's been working for almost 10 years since graduating from university. Right now, his monthly income is over 9,000 yuan, which is higher than before, and in Wuhan that's considered pretty decent. He also spends very frugally, saving around 50,000 yuan a year, which is already considered very thrifty. But even so, his current savings are still far from being enough to buy a house. If he relies completely on a mortgage, the repayment pressure would also be very heavy. But the reality is, whether it's women in their 20s who have never married or women in their 30s who are divorced, most of them have the same requirement. A man must have a house and a car. In other words, in the matchmaking market, everyone is competing for that small portion of high-quality men who already own a house and a car. The difficulty of this is obvious. By the time these women reach their late 30s and early 40s, reality finally forces them to look in the mirror. Suddenly, the phrase, "I won't marry unless it's worth it," starts to sound hollow. Because the calls, the proposals, the dates, the options, they aren't there anymore. The men who once pursued them have already married, maybe even divorced and remarried. The ordinary guys they rejected in their 20s now have stable jobs, houses, maybe even kids, and wives who stood by them when they were still building their lives. And now, these women, who once turned away from average men, are realizing that average was the best shot they had. Nowadays, neither men nor women are in a hurry to find a partner. Everyone carries this attitude of like Jiang Taegong fishing: if you're willing, take the bait, if not, forget it. There's no enthusiasm at all. Both men and women completely lack initiative, totally different from society in the past. Now it's just about lying flat. When it comes to relationships and marriage, everyone has adopted this lying flat mindset. People would rather get all excited about something like picking a restaurant for dinner, debating which place tastes best. But when it comes to finding a partner, there's zero enthusiasm, not even a little bit. Everyone is like Jiang Taegong, sitting by the river with a fishing rod, waiting lazily, even half asleep, because if a fish wants to bite, it will. If not, then whatever. The problem is, nowadays the river doesn't even have any fish left. That's the reality now. No one is willing to put in active effort to date, to get to know someone, to build a relationship. No one is proactive. Everyone is lazy, lying flat, half reclining and half drifting through life. In this kind of situation, how can people even talk about falling in love or getting married? It's basically impossible. Many of these Chinese women try to adjust by lowering their standards. They start saying things like, "I don't need a man with a house anymore, I can help pay for one," or "looks don't matter, kindness is more important," or "he doesn't need to be rich as long as he treats me well." These phrases sound noble, but the problem is that they're coming far too late. Because the men who fit these lowered standards, the kind-hearted, ordinary, hardworking men, already married women who accepted them years ago without hesitation. They don't want to marry someone who once looked down on them. They don't want to be the second choice of a woman who is now desperate. That is to say, for those really beautiful girls, if you want to marry a rich man, a powerful man, or a high-quality man, here's a very important piece of advice. Remember this. As long as your relationship history is more than 3, or if you let others know that you've had more than 3 relationships, high-quality men and wealthy men might date you, but they won't marry you. Let me explain why. I don't know if you realize this, but no matter who it is, men or women, everyone has a certain degree of misandry, dislike of men, or misogyny, dislike of women. And this level of dislike increases with age. For ordinary adults, it rises about 2–5% each year. But the number of romantic relationships multiplies this effect. Since ancient times, women have always had much higher expectations and demands for love and marriage happiness than men, many, many times higher. That's why when a woman experiences just one failed relationship, her level of misandry grows exponentially. It's very frightening. Ask yourself, wasn't your first love beautiful? But every relationship after that feels harder. Not necessarily because the other person treated you badly, but because you felt he wasn't sincere enough. Actually, in many cases, this is due to your growing level of misandry, not because the man was truly terrible. So how do older single men and women come about? Is it really because they couldn't find someone? Is it really because there was no one suitable? Is it really because they never met anyone they liked? No, none of those. For most of them, their misandry or misogyny level has already exceeded 40%. They unconsciously block themselves off, numb themselves. Whoever they date, they'll feel the other person isn't sincere. So, if you let others see that your misandry level is quite high, then high-quality men and wealthy men won't take that risk. Do you understand?